The weird thing about Diablo 4 in 2026 is that I don't even know what I would complain about anymore, and yet still, I'm not particularly excited to log in anymore. I've played every season of Diablo 4 since the original launch, and despite its teething troubles, I love the game, always have, always will. Long story short, I truly believe the latest Lord of Hatred DLC has propelled the game to the best state it's ever been in. However, ultimately, we're still playing the same game, doing the same activities, and grinding for the same loot. It's simply executed better, and as an active player, it just isn't quite enough to keep me excited at this point. And that's when I came to this realisation. Blizzard haven't failed to fix Diablo 4. In fact, if you put the time aside, they've done a pretty good job of it. Instead, my issue is that they fixed it, or brought it into a really good state, after I'd emotionally detached from the game. Right, for the sake of context, let me talk a bit about how exactly the game has improved so you can understand where I'm coming from. One of the key things is progression and pacing. From your journey of initial leveling all the way to the endgame grind of progressing through your equipment, things are in a much better place. A revamped difficulty system, which gives us loot more incrementally and impactfully, opposed to legendaries flying at you 24/7. I mean, in prior patches you know how it goes. You would rush the pit to get to a certain difficulty tier. Once you unlock that, you can pretty much replace your whole loadout with the new step up of loot, and from there you are on the pretty simple pathway to getting your mega OP build. Now though, every single little torment tier you climb through seems to have a bit more importance, and with more ways to target specifically what you're looking for, it never quite feels like you're going through this complete RNG process of finding the right piece. Instead, in a way, we're able to directly set our sights on what we're trying to achieve. Then the endgame has a bit more structure thanks to the new war plans. In short, the war plan makes the player decide what activities consecutively they're going to go do, and by doing those activities in the order the war plan tells you, then gives the player bonus rewards. A couple extra additions you wouldn't have got ordinarily if you went and did those activities in isolation. This helps players find direction in what to do once they get to the endgame, because I can imagine, especially for a new player with the amount of activities you do have to choose from, it probably does get a bit confusing. This is almost like having a playlist created that you have a bit of agency over, that ensures that not only do you get that bit of extra diversity off your play session, but the additional rewards also make you feel like it's important that you did it that way. And finally, one of the major changes I want to touch on is build variety. So first and foremost, a overhaul of the skill tree. It's not anything majorly impactful, but it is a straight up improvement to how the old tree worked. Much more choice over the skills you want to build into and the way they're executed in-game. The new set charm feature brings a hint of Diablo 3 back into the game without going all in on the previous armor set bonuses. Effectively another layer of power the player is able to choose from, but with the game accordingly scaling to this additional power, it works out quite nice. And then finally the cube. Now the reason I'm lumping this in with build varieties, because even though it's more of a quality of life situation, it's a great tool in getting players their builds online and allows you to target certain pieces. Maybe you find the exact right piece you're looking for, but the stats are completely way off. Well, just go reroll the whole item and there's a second chance at it. There's a few other additions. All in all, the cube is exactly what I said, more of a quality of life feature, but still happy it's in-game. But here's why Diablo 4 still feels a bit off to me. The core gameplay loop is fundamentally unchanged. An example we already talked about with the war plan, one of the big new features introduced in this latest season of the game. Now the war plan is just a different way to present the activities we already had. Don't get me wrong, I understand there are some additional bonuses you can get by doing activities through the war plan, especially by unlocking things within the additional skill tree you get that's tied to these activities. But again, that just kind of changes the reward of doing it and not the process of doing it. A Helltide is still a Helltide, a Nightmare Dungeon is still a Nightmare Dungeon. The pathway of completing them is more fluid, the experience is more tailored to which one you want to go do, and the rewards seem to make more sense for completing it, but we're still doing the same things. On a similar line to that with boss drops, you're still chasing the same uniques, the same mythics, it's just a different route of grinding to that point, and additional ways to acquire those unique boss drops. And then at the end of the day, due to the live service model Diablo 4 lives by, in a couple months the season ends and you're going to go do all of this over again. And I'm going to take the time to make the point very clear. You are more than welcome to continue enjoying that. And for what it's worth, I still have enjoyed my time and I don't regret buying the expansion one bit. In fact, I want to further chip in on this point by saying that Diablo 4 really isn't meant to be a complicated experience with a vast amount of mechanics. Path of Exiles and Path of Exiles 2 exists. Someone looking for that really insane amount of depth has that option available to them. The key pull off Diablo is, and always has been, to go run through a map and kill everything you see. The classes right now feel really good. There's a bunch of different builds you can do to kill everything. And loot dropping is always going to give a player that feeling of dopamine. And this is where an argument could be made that maybe the change I'm looking for shouldn't be injected into Diablo the way I may be discussing it here today. Maybe as I'm getting older, I'm starting to seek that level of depth, and maybe I will give Path of Exiles 2 another chance. However, once the freshness of this new expansion disappeared, which didn't take too long all things considered, I sort of shifted back to this pre-expansion mentality of wanting bigger change. And to once again clarify my point, this isn't an attack at Diablo. I'm not saying the game is bad by any means. Instead, it's more of a reflection of modern gaming as a whole. More and more frequently, modern games are launching unfinished. The general player reception tends to be things like, it will be fixed eventually. And that's becoming an industry standard at this point. A very unfortunate symptom of this is that players tend to burn out before the game reaches its peak. Right now Diablo 4 is better than it's ever been, but because it's took a few years for us to get to this point, a lot of players aren't going to dive back in. And a good portion of those who do, like myself, aren't going to get that same excitement anymore. And while I would still praise any developer who are actively working to improve their product after launch, a game that improves later doesn't always recreate the excitement people lost at launch. People bought base Diablo 4 a couple of years ago. If you liked the game back then, that's great, but let's be honest, it should have been better. Players shouldn't have to wait this amount of time and purchase multiple expansions just to get the product they deserved at launch. And I have seen a lot of that sentiment from other creators saying how this expansion is exactly what the game should have been at launch. Or at least, a lot of people will concede that maybe the first DLC should have been this. And while I would agree, I also do think Diablo 4 has become the game people wanted after players stopped caring. And look, maybe I'm hypocritical, maybe I'm just stupid, but I will keep playing Diablo 4 season on season, and for the most part track how the game continues progressing, because it has been an upwards curve, and I commend the Diablo 4 developers for that. If I was to kind of wrap up my opinion here, in short, the game is really good now. If you've never tried it, or it's been a couple years since you last played, I would genuinely give my personal recommendation to give it a second chance. I mean, maybe I'm in the complete minority with the opinions shared today, but then again, I think I'm completely justified in feeling a bit tired as an active player of the game. Could be a me issue, who knows. I'd love to continue that conversation in the comment section down below. Let me know if you've had similar thoughts on the game recently, or if you completely disagree. Thanks for watching.